Ed Ogeron also talked to the media yesterday, along with Jake Peets and DJ Mangus. And I know a lot of people focusing on his answers on offensive coordinator, but I do think defensive coordinators are interesting to highlight. And the main answer that I wanted to talk about is the one where he's answering what he's looking for in a defensive coordinator. And it's intriguing because it almost felt like validation of a lot of the things that we were all seeing outside looking in as fans, just watching the television copy. It seems like a lot of the instincts, a lot of the criticisms were on point, right? When we were talking about, does it look like, it doesn't look like the team's responding to Pelini in any way when he's yelling at them on the sideline. It looks like they're kind of nonplussed, just looking off into the distance, like he's yelling into the void. And I feel very confident in saying that was indeed the case. I mean, listen to Ogeron's answers yesterday. What are they looking for in a defensive coordinator? They're looking for someone who connects with the players. They're looking for someone who, when they talk, the coach talks, the players listen. For somebody who commands the room, who has a presence about them. That was not Bo Pelini. I think that's one of the things that hurt Arnett in his interview process. And that's maybe why a name like Ryan Nielsen becomes so interesting. Because Nielsen, now he's never been defensive coordinator, but if we just look at his D-line resume, Feldman talked about his time at NC State earlier, where NC State got good, and they got good almost specifically because of how disruptive their defensive line was. He turned a bunch of no-name guys into NFL draft picks, and then eventually he ends up on the New Orleans Saints staff. And when you look at that Saints defensive line, think about how hard it is to coach a position group in the NFL. And let's just look at the Saints defensive line as an example. Ryan Nielsen has to figure out ways to motivate rookies, young guys, be it like a Sheldon Rankins, an Onyemata, Malcolm Roach, these young players. But then at the same token, he has to be able to coach, criticize, and motivate all-decade players. Right? Like, it's easy to get Trey Hendrickson to listen to you. How do you also then get Cam Jordan to listen to you? It's by having that presence. When you speak, the players listen. And so I think you see that in Ryan Nielsen's time with the New Orleans Saints. And when you talk to people around that program, around that franchise, I should say, and when you talk to players who have played for him, you get a similar sense that, yes, everybody in that room respects him, and everybody believes that if they do what he's saying, he's putting them in the best position to succeed. And the Saints' results speak for themselves. I mean, the D-line is one of the most dominant in the entire NFL. Even this year, where Cam Jordan's numbers are as down as they've ever been in a long time, Trey Hendrickson picks up the slack. Onyemata picks up the slack on the interior. Sheldon Rankins with the sack last game. He's now coming on. Marcus Davenport, still not getting the raw numbers you want, but affecting the game nonetheless. So that's why I think Nielsen's an interesting name to watch out for. Plus, when you combine things like his relationship with Ogeron. And it's funny, I can speak to this a bit. Now, it was a long, long time ago. Back in 2006 at Ole Miss football camp. The most intense camp I've ever been to. This was old school Ogeron, where we're doing like fully unpadded two-a-days. The high school camp, it was wild. Only time I ever had full body cramps in my entire life. But the point is, Nielsen was on that staff, and I'd forgotten until I was Googling him and looked at him without a beard, and sure enough, there he is. And he was that D-line coach there, and his ability to connect with you was spectacular. Even then, I only can imagine that it's become refined over the years, so it's certainly a name to watch out for. Shane Smith, Nielsen ever called defensive plays? I don't believe so. We'd have to double check his resume, but I don't believe he's ever been a defensive coordinator calling plays. So, I mean, look, there's risk. There's risk. There's always risk in hiring, though, right? That's what we've been talking about. And outside of Freeman, who you thought was a sure thing, I don't know if there's a sure thing out there, right? Charlie Strong, a mixed bag. Really good parts of his resume, really horrible parts of his resume. Pete Golding. Why would Pete Golding even be available? Is Alabama trying to move on from, right? It's like, I don't know. Schumann seems like someone who would be a home run, but there just hasn't been a lot of smoke there. So we'll wait and see where it goes. But at least, again, I feel like, look, it's okay to make mistakes in football, in life. But what your coaches will tell you, the main thing is, can you avoid making the same mistake twice? And at least with how LSU is approaching this from the parameter standpoint, what they're looking for in coaches, it seems to me that they are desperately trying to avoid making the same mistake twice. And, well, we got a little time, and we'll see if it pays dividends. Shane Smith, you got a guy on the staff with all those qualifications, but he can't get hired because he never called plays before. Yeah, look, as far as Corey Raymond goes, I don't know what to make of it, right? You would think that he would maybe be, that he's earned that opportunity, that he's definitely qualified for it. But I can't pretend to have any inside information as to why there's not more taking place there. And certainly, I think it's very frustrating. I think it's also got to be very frustrating on the NFL level for Bieniemy, who they're now saying may not get a head coaching job, and yet now you have Joe Brady, who people are talking about giving a head coaching job. Like, Bieniemy's resume is much longer and more experienced than Brady. So, like, what's the difference? I don't know. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. But, okay, so here we go. Emil McClellan changed with 13 and 16. Nielsen was defensive line recruiting coordinator and run game coordinator at North Carolina State. So he has a modicum of coordinator experience there. Is that NC State team? Did they beat Clemson? Or no, they almost beat Clemson? I can't remember. Either way, it's a name to watch out for, one that seems to be gaining. Well, and it's just in terms of Nielsen, he fits what Ogeron's talking about in terms of, like, some of the guys who want to talk to are still playing football. When he told us that at the time, you thought maybe it was Alabama, something like that. Now you have to question, okay, are the guys that he's looking at in the NFL?